Let's talk about War. War is the second in the Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa, about a lady who boinks the second horse of the apocalypse. In my previous video, I said Laura Thalassa was Australian. I don't know how I got that mixed up, but I was thinking of a completely different romance author. Laura Thalassa is from Fresno, California, which is notably not anything near Australia. So, sorry about that. I feel like this book is technically better than the first one, but I enjoyed it about as much. This book felt so long. I think these could be much shorter and they'd be way more fun to read. I'm curious if the author's books have gotten longer. I feel like authors that are successful, they get to have really long page counts, even when I don't think it's necessary. But I'm willing to bet that her books are even longer now because the traditionally published version of this book is, I think, 50 pages longer than the Kindle version I read. So I can only imagine what has been added in between editions that needed to be there. There's definitely more plot than there was in the first one, which is good, except all of the plot is extremely boring and predictable. So I still kind of feel like I'm gonna die while I'm reading it. Going to speed through parts of this book because a lot of it is set in Jerusalem, in and around Jerusalem. The reason it is set where it is because, there's like scriptures about the end of the world happening in that part of the world in Jerusalem. And so I understand the reasoning, but I think given the real world implications, you have to dance around when choosing to set a book in that area in the near future. I think it would have made more sense to just maybe have it so that War is heading to Jerusalem. That is his end goal, because that's where the end of the world happens proper. But maybe he never actually gets to Jerusalem. That would be a good way to incorporate the mythological significance, religious significance of the region without actually getting into the thorny business of what you've decided to do with your near future version of Jerusalem. Our protagonist is Miriam. At first I thought she was going to be different from the protagonist in the first book, but she's pretty much the same. She just kills people a little more readily. Her internal monologue is pretty much identical to the first one. I know that's honestly kind of a trope in romance, if an unintentional one, because the idea is for people to project themselves onto the main character, so their thoughts will be maybe a little vague, maybe not a lot of characterization. But regardless, I still find it annoying. I would like a protagonist to have, and personality if I'm going to spend 500 fucking pages listening to her dumb thoughts. She sees War for the first time. He's approaching Jerusalem with his army, and she is struck by how big and huge he is. For a moment, none of what I'm seeing really registers, because what I'm seeing is wrong. No horse has a coat that red, and no man has that impressive a stature. That line always gets me. It's just so awkward to read. No horse has a coat that red, and no man has that impressive a stature. Those two phrases are not parallel, but they read like they should be parallel. I don't know how to describe it. I hope you can understand what I'm getting at. Even his face has the look of some tragic hero, his feral masculine beauty only serving to make him appear more lethal. I don't know what masculine beauty means. I'm begging you guys to think of some words other than masculine, because I really don't know what that is supposed to conjure in my mind. I'm just getting a Chad face. That's all I can think of, which I hope you don't want your romantic lead to look like a Chad face. So she's running around the city that War is taking over, and she's like, oh my god, everybody's dying. Then she runs into War, and instead of killing her, he captures her and claims that she's his wife. Back at camp, War has all his prisoners lined up, and he asks them if they would surrender and join his war band or die, and Miriam chooses to die. Obviously, he doesn't kill her. She acts like he's gonna kill her, a bunch of times throughout the book, it's, never really actually a threat. But he does kill, like, a lot of people around her. Another description about how bigly huge War is. There's no mistaking it now. His shoulders are too wide. His muscles are too thick. His limbs are too long. His torso too massive. His features too complicated. I don't know what complicated features mean. I know he's supposed to be big and scary and otherworldly beautiful, but I don't know. It's just like, oh, he's big? Word. This description doesn't really give me anything. Throughout the book, Miriam, tries to escape and does actually try to sabotage him, which I do appreciate. In the previous book, I was kind of frustrated that the protagonist just sort of wasn't really fighting against him. Like, she knew he couldn't die, so she just gave up trying to fight him. In this, even though she knows he can't die, she still tries to find ways to disrupt his plans, which, though it wasn't executed particularly well, I appreciate giving her something to do as a protagonist. That does make me like her a little bit more, I guess, or at least make her less boring. At one point, a trope I've started noticing makes a reappearance. War forces Miriam to ride with him in the desert without any sun protection, and so she gets heat stroke, and then he feels bad and has to take care of her. I know it's supposed to be him showing that he's actually a nice guy because he's like caring for her all like tenderly, but he's the one who made her ride behind him in the sun all day with no protection. Like, he kind of created the problem in the first place, but he gets to take credit for like soothing her. It's like, that's stupid. They have conversations in their little tent. She asks him what he did before waking up, and he says he slept on Earth, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense. His answers don't make much sense to me, but then not much else about him makes sense either. So far, what I've learned about him is that he can't be killed. He doesn't need food or water, and he doesn't shit or piss like the rest of us. So we finally get some horseman lore. They don't shit or piss. Wouldn't really have a problem with that, except there are numerous times throughout the book where Miriam like sneaks out while War is asleep, and so I feel like the like magical logic doesn't really make sense to me. He doesn't have to sleep, but he can hit REM sleep. I don't really I know that's like a little nitpicky thing, but I feel like at that point, if you want him to have these vulnerabilities like a human, like he sleeps or he needs to rest, just make it so that this human-like body he's in has to be maintained like a regular human body. You can still have him be immortal, but you can just give him a little bit of a limitation that will provide these intimate and unguarded moments between her and him. While he's sleeping, she says he looks angelically demonic, which, again, I don't really know what that's supposed to mean. She says he looks peaceful and cute, but then she's like, no, he looks like a demon who's angelic. I'm just like, so what does that mean? Whatever. Miriam asks War to retrieve her tools for crafting that are in her old apartment. So he does so. He brings them back for her, and he also brings back a family photo, and she's very touched by that. During the next raid, a woman called Zara appears and has a gun. Even though, when I talked about the previous book, there was talk about technology not working anymore, but they weren't really clear on like how that worked. So like sometimes technology works. So in this case, Zara has a gun even though nobody else has a gun, and she empties a clip into War. And Miriam sees this and somehow convinces War not to kill Zara, who had tried to kill him, because she's got like such gumption, such spirit. Right after this, to clean up all the stragglers he didn't already kill, War reveals he can raise the dead. Miriam tries to run away again. War's like, I feel like we're so distant. Why don't you care about me? And she's like, it's because you keep killing everyone. They have this conversation a lot. Ultimately, I think this would be more interesting if we knew what War would have to give up to stop warmongering, which is his immortality, basically. If the trade-off was made clear throughout the book, it would sort of help the reader understand the stakes of why war feels like he can't stop killing people. Because it seems like the author wants to humanize the horsemen and make it so that they don't delight in the killing. So them giving up their job isn't about stopping killing, it's about something else. Do they value their immortality? Is that something that they're considering? Are they like, well, if I don't have a purpose in life, like I quit my job, what will I do? We can understand his hesitance to stop. Because we don't understand the trade-off, both of these books so far just come off as a woman trying to get her Tinder date to quit his evil job, which isn't ultimately very dramatic or interesting. Anyway, Miriam befriends Zara, the woman that she saves. We honestly don't get to see much of their relationship. They bring each other food sometimes. They have a few very short conversations. Most of them are just about war, even though war has killed everyone Zara has ever known. She's still okay having these conversations with Miriam about this fucking guy. Next is the obligatory scene with a threat of sexual violence. I'm not opposed to this in dark romance. I think if you can't touch topics of assault in dark romance, I don't know where else you can talk about them. But, not very skillfully deployed in this instance. Some guys burst into Miriam's tent and they attempt to assault her, and they beat her up and break her ribs. War, of course, comes to rescue her and then makes her spend time in his tent while she heals. And this is where we get to see that he can heal people by laying his hands on them. Being in close proximity, she gets to see his dong. It's obviously gigantic. Miriam is also beginning to be attracted to him more and more since he's, being kind to her. War offers to let her kill the men that attacked her, but she declines. So he kills them anyway, and then he also kills all the residents of the tents around hers who did not come to her aid when she was being attacked. This makes her even hornier for him. For absolutely no logical reason whatsoever, today I'm unable to ignore him. Or maybe there is a reason. Maybe war's barbaric justice earlier today broke something in me. Whatever the reason, now I can't help but notice the sharp cut of his jaw, his dark, almost black hair, and those curving lips. I take in his red leather armor and his powerful thighs. I'm having thigh fantasies about my enemy. I'm not opposed to her being more attracted to him when he is, acting more monstrous. I think that's an interesting dynamic to touch on. The sort of conflicted attraction to powerful men who do violence on your behalf. But that's not really what's happening here. She just sort of gets hornier for him and isn't really made by anyone around her to consider how kind of fucked up that is, that he killed all of those people, some of whom didn't do anything to her. And she's that gets her going. But we don't really get to touch on that. She just accepts on its face that she wants to pay him now. He, when they're, getting cozy, he tells her that each horseman has a chance to end his campaign if he believes humanity can be redeemed in some way. I know this is also kind of a genre convention where the guy who does bad stuff can only quit doing his bad stuff because of how good a girl is at head. But, I don't know. I kind of wish there were a couple other reasons he decided to stop killing everyone other than his girlfriend gets sad about it. I just think it would make him more of a character and less of just an archetype. He tells her it's lonely to be alive and then asks her to tell him something beautiful. So she talks about her parents. Now he turns his head to face me. So you find love beautiful, Miriam? He asks. No, I say, my eyes meeting his in the near darkness. Not love itself. Everything I've ever loved I've lost. There's no beauty in that. It's the power of love that I find beautiful. I just think that's a funny line because he asks if it's love that she finds beautiful. She's like, no, it's the power of love. They make out, and they're about to, like, I don't know, do hand stuff, and War's horse enters the tent and starts, like, snuffling his hair. I thought that was funny, because who else has had their pet burst into the room while they're, participating in certain activities? It's pretty true to life. She really wants to boink him at, this point in the book. So she kind of does this self-serving deal with him where she offers to, like, surrender to him so she can have sex with him if he agrees to stop making zombies. He says no, and then they negotiate down to him not killing the messenger birds that are in each town. I kind of feel like that makes her a terrible negotiator. But, gotta get yours, I guess. They start getting down and dirty. And of course, his dick is huge. She's ready to go, but he again says, like, I won't do the full thing unless you surrender to me. Anyway, he instead goes down on her, and she, like, loses her mind. And then she goes down on him, and he loses his mind. He kind of has a moment where he's like, I've never felt anything like this. And I know that's supposed to mean, like, he's never had sex with somebody he loves. But really, it just reads like this 2,000-year-old guy has never gotten head in his life. Anyway, she gives him head, and all she has to think after she's done this is she's worried about having superhuman baby batter in her stomach. We don't really get any more information. She just is briefly concerned about that, and then we just keep going. She describes him as being painfully kind at this point because, they've been intimate, and so he's really, like, sweet to her. Anyway, she goes to her tent and thinks about them boinking after they boink. And she talks to Zara for, like, 2 pages, and then she gets called right back to War's tent, and they boink some more. I don't really know why this little scene exists between the 2 sex scenes. It's like 1 page. It just feels kind of silly to have this little break in between if you're not going to have them do anything. The next raid, she has a little more freedom now because they've gotten so much closer, and she uses her freedom to try and help Zara find an escape with some family in the city. Of course, by the time she gets there, Zara's family is dead, except for her young nephew who has an arrow in his chest. Miriam begs War to save the boy, which he does. Miriam visits Zara and her nephew, and they talk about how Zara's family died. I really wish we had more scenes with Zara. This is a note I have been giving my own self on my various drafts. I often have trouble filling narrative space between plot points. There are certain events I have in mind, but I struggle getting from point A to point B. I'm personally very character focused when I write, so when I'm having that problem, I think about what sort of dynamic I want the 2 characters to have, where I want them to begin and end, and I basically arrange, like, a play date for those characters. I, like, set up a scene and pick an activity that either of them could conceivably do together. So if Miriam and Zara are supposed to have this trauma bond, which is fine if they bond immediately, but not giving them time in the narrative to actually bond so that we can see it diminishes Zara's character. Maybe Miriam could help her cook or teach her how to use a bow and arrow. Little moments where the characters can get to interact so Zara feels more like a character and not just like a prop. Anyway, immediately after Zara and Miriam kind of catch up, Zara does what has been pissing me off in these books, which is that she alludes to the Horsemen being in love with her. I'm starting to suspect that the only side characters, especially female side characters, the author puts in these books are women who tell the female main character that their horsemen are in love with them. Anyway, she gets called back to War's tent for the second time in like 24 in-book hours. War is drunk and like trying to hook up with her, and then she asks about protection, and that pisses him off because she thinks he's got like a baby mama, or like that he kills people when he gets them pregnant. I don't really understand why he gets mad. He keeps asking her to move into his tent with him. She keeps saying no. He keeps saying, I could force you if I wanted to. Honestly, I think he should have forced her to stay in the tent so I could stop watching them have the same fucking conversation like every 50 pages. They go out for a ride so they can boink without people hearing. Miriam says that he's a generous lover, which is crazy to me. The idea that he's this, like, warlord and also good at sex is just kind of silly. Again, I know that's part of the fantasy, but he just acts like a modern day guy. You know, he's not like an angelic presence. He's just a dude. After they get done doing what they're doing, one of War's zombies like wanders up, and then Miriam remembers that he's a fucking mass murderer. At this point, I'm starting to think that these books are perhaps not equipped to depict the cognitive dissonance that this conceit calls for. Like, these women, they like have sex with the guy and then they forget about all the killing he's done, and then post nut clarity, they're like, he's killing everyone. Incorporating the two states of mind might kind of allow us to understand her character as being conflicted, because I think that is the intent, is for her to be conflicted, but it just seems like she's got a short memory. Anyway, she doesn't want to go back with him because she remembered he's a mass murderer, and she tries to run back to camp on foot, but one of War's zombies tackles her and like holds on to her as she walks home, and it apparently stinks so bad she pukes like 4 times on the way back to camp. Then there's like a boring time skip where she doesn't want to talk to him or see him, and he's too afraid to talk to her, so they just don't hang out for a week or 2. Apparently during this time she's hanging out with Zara, but again, we don't get to see any of it. We just get told that they've been hanging out instead. After, a little bit of time, War and Miriam make up, and he says he'll respect her opinions, which, like, I think the opinion in question was that he should stop killing people, which is just like, I don't know if you guys actually made up. I think you guys just want to boink. I don't think you're solving your problems right now. Anyway, right after that, he kills a whole village after she asked him to spare it, which is sick. Next battle, she's riding in with him. She's like on his horse with him. She is trying to send a message at the aviary, but one of War's riders catches her and threatens to kill her. I grab War's dagger and unsheath it. Uzair smirks at the sight. He pulls his own sword out, which is much bigger and longer. Fuck me. In fighting, as in sex, bigger tends to be better. Hold on. I don't know if I agree about that. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. Anyway, she stabs him and he dies, and then a building like almost crushes her because it's on fire. War, of course, saves her, and then he gets mad at her. He's like, how could you do this? You could have died, he says, and then he kisses me. He ravages my mouth like it's a city he's set to destroy. Okay. She passes out because she inhaled a bunch of smoke, and he takes care of her again. He heals her again. She describes him as seeming human now while he's taking care of her. He is impressed that she killed one of his head guys, though, which I do think is fun. Again, she tries to convince him not to kill the people who survived his raid with his zombies. She says she'll properly surrender to him. He agrees to not kill as many people so that they can have sex. So at some point, I don't even remember when, because they do lots of hand stuff. They do lots of oral, but they don't actually do the deed until a certain point. But of course, once they've done that, she starts puking everywhere. This time not from zombies, but because she's pregnant. Duh. She doesn't tell War about the baby, and instead she runs away. She runs away for the umpteenth time, and he catches her 1 page later, and she just comes back and tells him she's pregnant, and he's like, oh my god, I have to stop murdering now. So he just slowly tapers down. He slowly stops killing as many people. He stops killing children, stops killing women and the elderly, and then he just stops killing everyone. to the point where he just disbands his army, except for his riders, who are like his top guys. And he puzzles a little bit as to whether or not he should let the guys live, because they've done the bulk of the war crimes. And the riders figure this out, and while they don't know that War decided, no, I'm going to let them live because I can become a better man, and so can they. But because they don't know that, they ambush War, and they kill him by blowing him up and cutting his head off. Now, I did think that was cool. It doesn't last long. Of course, Miriam is beside herself, so she finds his decapitated head, and then somehow manages to find his body. They've like half buried him with explosives, so even if he does regenerate, he'll just blow up again. My thought would be to just kind of like toss his head in there and then let him regenerate, blow up, and then regenerate again. I feel like it might take a while, but she would be okay. She could just wait it out. But of course, instead of doing that, she tries to pull him out of the hole, and then she blows up. And then he wakes up, realizes she's dead. We get a chapter of War talking to his brother Death, begging him to bring his wife and child back. Death does, on the condition that War give up his sword. So he does, and then they're both alive and mortal, and they live happily ever after. So yeah, that was my, I don't know, do I call these review, nitpick, edits? I don't really know. I think what I'm tapping into is that I miss having critiques. When I was in art school, I really loved critiques. And so sometimes I'd like to critique something, even if nobody asked me to. I've really started to regret deciding to read this series. No one's making me do it, but I've gotten halfway through. I have to see it through. This book, like I said, is just over 500 pages. I felt every one of them. And like I said earlier, I want to say this is a better book in the series than the first one. But I was just so bored. And even though there were events happening, there wasn't a lot for me to sink my teeth into, like thematically or even like conflict-wise with the characters. I think in this book there are more potential locations to kind of flesh out the world and the characters. There are other characters in the book, like Zara, that I think could have been fleshed out to great effect. It would have given Miriam a reason to be conflicted about being in love with War, because Zara is someone that War took everything from. It would give the main couple more friction, more adversity to overcome. Otherwise, like I said, this is just a story about a girl trying to make her boyfriend quit his like evil Department of Defense job. Like, it just is like too mundane. It's evil, but it's mundane at the same time. I'm starting Famine right now. I have to take a break and maybe read some books that are good in between. But I have started reading Famine. God help me. The main character is a sex worker, which I expect to be very sensitively portrayed and not at all problematic. I recorded this video four and a half times, and the last take, my outro got deleted. So thanks for watching. I've decided to call this series Unsolicited Critique, because that's what it is. Okay. Love you. Bye.